Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Innovation Stories, a series of virtual conversations with leaders and founders who have driven innovations that have changed our lives and inspired thousands of other innovators across the world. Our first guest today is none other than Sabeer Bhatia. Sabeer needs no introduction. He's an alum of BITS Pilani, Caltech, and Stanford, and is one of the pioneers of the internet revolution. He founded Hotmail, as many of us know, in 1996 and sold the company to Microsoft in 1998. Even after 23 years, Hotmail continues to be a household name. Since then, he's founded several ventures, from e-commerce to communication services. His latest venture is ShowReel, which we will talk a lot about later today. There is no better person than Sabeer to kick off our innovation series. With that, we'll take a short break and meet Sabeer at the end of it.
This episode of Innovation Stories is brought to you by Spade. Spade is a tool to manage the entire quality process workflow of your contact center operations. Many companies are seeing tangible benefit by moving to Spade from Excel-based audit forms and reports. To know more, reach out to us at spadeondemand.com.
Firstly, thank you very much. I know you're burning the early morning oil to meet us today. It's 7:30 for us, but 6 a.m. for you, which means you must have got up at 5:15 or 5:30, I guess. So thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, in fact, this is the first of the innovation stories, so it's wonderful to have you, Sabeer. To everyone else, Sabeer and I are going to talk for maybe 30, 40 minutes. And if you have any questions, please post them only in the Q&A box, not in the chat box, because I'll look at the Q&A box and ask Sabeer the questions that you may have. So with that, let's get started. Sabeer, I want to take you right back to your Hotmail days. I know in fact, recently read a quote of yours saying, "Crazy ideas change the world." So do you think Hotmail was a crazy idea at that time?
I think so, yeah. It was just crazy because we were giving something away for free. And that was like one of the first business models over there where people questioned, why are you giving something away for free when others charge for it? And of course, taking on an establishment, which is, email was a very well-established product, meant to be accessed through an email client, like an Outlook client or a Eudora client. And so the other innovative piece was we made it available on the web. And so a lot of people questioned, is email really a web-based product? And so, but when you're young and you don't think too much about external constraints and how things are done or popular thinking, you come up with innovative breakthrough ideas. It's I have kind of subconsciously analyzed so many companies that have become successful in the span of the last 25 years. And all of them have defied conventional thinking and done something different when there was either a very crowded market, they did something better, or they just completely, thought outside of the box and said, why can we not do it this way? I mean, a different way of thinking. Look at Uber, for example. Who would have thought they would completely disrupt the taxi cab industry? I mean, if you went with conventional thinking and said to yourself that all these taxi cabs have been given licenses, there are regulations, there are laws, local laws, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, here's a smartphone, we can do this, why not? And same thing with Airbnb. Who would have thought that you could turn a spare room in your bedroom, in your home, into a money-making kind of a small mini hotel, right? And so that's why you've got to think outside of the box.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, how does it come about? Because we're talking about 96 or 95. most of the email, especially personal email, I suppose you had to get it through ISPs in those days. And you were young, of course, and you'd finished college and probably started. I believe you started with Apple, if I'm right. And I don't know if you were at Apple at that time or another company, but how did that idea just come about? I'm just curious because absolutely, I mean, you disrupted the entire way in which email was used in those days. So how did it come about?
So after actually, I was working at a small startup called Firepower Systems in those days, and uh, after so when the internet was very young, I started playing around with. Instinctively, I knew this was going to be big one day. It was just the very early days. So I had an idea to do a web-based kind of database on the internet that was easy to put together by just dragging and dropping a few things. Imagine if you could store all your photos or your phone numbers, or any kind of piece of information that was important to you online, so that you don't have to carry it with you. That was the initial idea. Uh, and when putting that whole company together, I recruited my partner and co-founder Jack Smith to join me in this venture. The company where we were working put a firewall around our corporate intranet, and that made it difficult for us to access our personal email accounts. Mine was at stanford.edu, and he had one at AOL. And that's when the idea occurred to us that what if we made email available on the web, because we can access any web page? That would solve our problem. And lo and behold, today,
Okay.
4 billion people use some form of web-based email.
Yeah, and I should point out, by the way, we have, I think, 150 odd people who have registered for today's event, and I just quickly went through them. At least 20 of them were Hotmail email addresses, by the way. Just FYI. I mean, it's not an
Great,
Outlook.
excellent.
It's not an Outlook email ID, but it's a Hotmail email ID. So that's fascinating. So two of you started this idea,
Yeah.
great idea. How did you get the word out? I mean, that's two of you, fairly young, I suppose. You didn't have that much corporate connects and contacts besides your friend circle. So how did you get the word out for it to grow so rapidly?
So we were told by our VC firm to hire a PR firm, and literally in those days, I went and went and met individual journalists all over the world, all over the United States. There was a West Coast tour, there was an East Coast tour, and pretty much went and pitched the idea and shared with them my passion and enthusiasm for what we were doing. And people started writing articles, and the word started spreading. And really, it was, if there is a need for something, there is always a good word of mouth phenomenon, that people hear about it. They're like, sign up for Hotmail, that kind of stuff. And it's free email, and then a lot of people questioned, like the techies said, I can access my email anywhere by configuring a local Outlook client to my pop server and downloading it. I'm like, just think of the masses. They can't do all of this. You got to make it easier. I mean, and that was Steve Jobs' philosophy. Everybody was talking about speeds of processor and how much memory. He says, forget it. The general world does not want that. They just want beautiful design that just works with no bugs, with no malware, with no, and so that was the revival of Apple. They created uh, an operating system that was rock solid, that was based on Unix, and that just worked. And the design was beautiful. People are emotionally connected to Apple products. That emotional connection, if any company can achieve to a product, I mean, then they will have that captive audience for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, you mentioned actually your VC kind of suggested that you go meet PR firms, and your VC, I suppose, was Draper Fisher. Jurvetson.
Draper Fisher Jurvetson, yes.
Yeah, and I suppose Hotmail was one of their very early success stories.
Yes.
And you pitched to them. When you pitched to them, of course, you did not have a revenue model in mind, or did you? Was the pitch
No.
hard to do? Was the pitch hard to do at that time?
Well, no, but the pitch was really, actually, it was, we were pitching for the other product. And so they then said, so what's new? I mean, you're already saying with the other web-based database product that one day Oracle will come in, and Microsoft and others will all join and do this. So why are you different? I said, well, actually, I have another idea. And they said, so what is it? I said, I can't tell you, but unless you sign an NDA. They said, we don't sign NDAs. I said, okay, just give me a verbal commitment that this will not leave this room. And I pitched to them this whole free email idea. Instantly, they loved it.
Oh,
And
really? Amazing.
so the revenue model was like, see, the problem with, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs of today is they think of the revenue model first.
Hmm.
And I have found that the most successful companies actually solve a problem. Their goal is not to make revenue. Their goal is to solve a problem. And if you solve a problem, and of course you've got to make tweaks along the way, and position your product and company correctly, and you get a lot of usage, the revenue kind of follows. So just think of it slightly differently. Think of yourself, and this is what even like Jeff Bezos or Jack Ma, they didn't think of revenue. Like Jack Ma says, I think of the small business that I'm helping. How can I help that business? Is there something? And that's how he built such a phenomenal Alibaba. So also with Jeff Bezos, he thought more about the end customer. The customer experience has to be great. Doesn't matter if it's costing you $200 to deliver a product today. Over time, that'll come down, but you have won that customer for the rest of that customer's life. So it's the long-term customer value. And so if you have a long-term outlook, for 17 years, Amazon didn't make any money. Everybody thought, well, what the hell? They're losing money on every package that they're sending. And today, they're one of the five most valuable companies. So you have to have a long-term view of what you're doing and where the future is. You can't be stuck in the past, and you can't be worried about just day-to-day kind of revenue.
Yeah, and solving a problem is absolutely spot on. And few years later, the internet boom and the collapse. So you think most of those companies which shut shop so quickly, in the early 2000s, they were not solving a problem. They were just, I mean, how did that come about? Because I mean, you were a front runner. I mean, you started early, but after that, there was a gold rush and many collapsed. So what mistakes did they make, you think?
Um, I think a lot of the companies, timing is also very important on the internet. If you come out with a product at the wrong time and spend all your resources trying to get it to kind of work or people to use it, you could fail. I mean, there were two cloud storage companies, in the 2000 time frame that kind of went kaput. I think I forget their names. But the same thing, Dropbox
Yeah,
and Box came like
later.
8, 10 years later, but the internet had become so much more reliable, robust, bandwidth was available. Same thing with video. Video in 2000, early 2000, a lot of the video kind of companies didn't make it, but then YouTube came, and after that now and today, Zoom, created this personal communication revolution, and of course the pandemic just accelerated everything.
Yeah,
Timing is very important. So when you say what is wrong, sometimes it's the timing.
yeah.
uh, one thing that always gets companies into trouble is when they ramp up their burn very quickly.
Mm.
And that could be a result of excessive funding, for example. Well, we're big, we're here, let's just scale up quickly and hire people and just grow. um, and that that is a trap that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of fall into, and that's a very dangerous trap. You have to keep low till you really start seeing traction, either in the form of new customers or in the form of new subscribers, one or the other,
Mm, mm.
uh, till you start pouring money into the company to start, scaling
Scaling it
it.
up.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned timing. So talking about timing, you sold your company to Microsoft in what, 18 months or less than 24 months? Do
Yes,
you
20
do you
months.
think
Yeah.
20 months? Do you think you sold a little too early, or was it right?
No, no, I think it was absolutely right at that time because, like you said, the internet went up and came down. A few years later after that, there was a big bust, and we could have ended up with no company at all, and with a very formidable competitor in Microsoft. So uh, you know, it was, I think, the right thing at that time.
Oh, perfect. In fact, I'm completely with you. As I said, there are still so many Hotmail users, even after
Yeah,
what 20 25 years. So
yeah,
now,
yeah.
before we move on to Showreel, Sabir, we'll just talk a little bit about what happened in between. So what I know you tried multiple ideas. So what exactly did you try, and especially in terms of what you think you learned? Because Hotmail is when you were really young, and then I suppose you as an entrepreneur as well matured. So what happened in between?
So yeah, I tried different ideas. One of them was called Jackster SMS, which was on the heels of WhatsApp. It was at one
Oh,
point growing faster than WhatsApp, and we had a couple of investors that were kind of interested, but that backed away in the last minute.
mm,
The only difference between WhatsApp and Jackster SMS was that we were spending about 7 cents in acquiring a customer
mm,
because we had an out of network texting capability as well. We allowed people to send text messages to uh, to non-Jackster SMS users as well, thereby incurring an out-of-network texting charge. So three things happened.
mm,
One, our largest market was actually India, and because India had this uh, you know even now 90% of WhatsApp users come from India,
yeah,
because people are very cost sensitive in India, price sensitive, and this was a way of sending inexpensive international text messages.
mm,
So one thing was that in India, for delivery of out of network text messages, we were using something called a transactional pipe. And TRAI, some guy there came and decided that this was spamming. I'm like, but the message is originating from an individual sending to another individual. We may be using this inexpensive texting method, but it is, it's not spam. It's like, and we are paying you for it. They shut us down immediately, saying this is spam. I mean,
mm,
so that put a damper on our growth. And then the investor that we were looking at backed out. And I said, I'm not going to carry this forward just myself personally.
mm,
Uh, so what I learned is, once again, you see, timing is important.
mm,
To And I think the Indian government has become a lot better at this now.
mm,
But they shouldn't, or not, I shouldn't blame the government, but individuals shouldn't be overly zealous to, impose, or uh, I should say, enforce laws, because oftentimes new companies are, they are kind of trying new ideas, and
mm,
the laws of yesteryear may be too rigid for today's companies, because you are, like, what Uber did is break all kinds of taxi laws in the world.
right, right.
Like, you think about it, why has Uber not come out of India? Probably because they would be shut down in 2 seconds because of the taxi lobby that would go
Mm,
to the government, and some local politician would say, what, shut them down because they're breaking a law. So if you have to just stick to laws and over regulation, you cannot innovate, and innovation does not happen. In the US, there were similar laws, but because it was a time of uh, uh, mass unemployment after the 2008 meltdown, local cities looked the other way and said, hey, at least it's giving people something to do. It's providing employment. That is more important. We worry about employment more than whether you're enforcing a law or not, or breaking a law or not. So the mindset should be, what does help society as a whole? How can we do things that help people find jobs, informal. So the whole informal sector has taken off as a result. Now people are complaining they're not paid enough, is the other, but at least there's a dialogue, but you're employing a lot of people, and that's always a good thing. The number one focus of a government should be to create more employment. I mean, that is our biggest problem in the country. We don't have enough new jobs that are being created. We somehow missed that whole manufacturing kind of revolution that China embraced. But without jobs, you cannot have a strong foundation for a future economy.
Sure. And the other question I have from an entrepreneurial perspective is that you did try kind of multiple ideas in the meantime between Hotmail and ShowReel. The question here is that when does an entrepreneur say, you know what, I should not proceed with this, I should stop? That's a hard decision because invariably you'll be emotionally tied to the idea. You have people working for you, and there are a lot of other factors that you want to push it maybe another month, another 2 months, another quarter. So, how do you decide on saying, this is it? Let me kind of shut the idea for the moment, maybe revisit it another time. How does one think about
Um, One simple way is when funding runs out. If you've put together like a simple like plan, funding
it? You're
runs out,
forced. You're
and
forced to.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're forced to. And the second one is, and that's kind of responsible way of doing things. That's why it's very important. One of the things I've learned is get institutional partners. Don't just take money from individuals, this, that. Take money from institutions. Even forget the valuation, dilution, all that is useless. At the end, if the company is successful, everybody will benefit, and
Correct.
massively. So don't worry about, how much, what percentage you are retaining. I mean, that's the last thing that an entrepreneur should think about.
Yeah.
And the other one is that, you know, set internal goals for yourself when you start out, and say, by this time, I should have achieved this. And, and make those goals known to the whole company as well. It's an internal kind of objective, some metric that you have set for the entire team, so that all of them subconsciously internalize, our goal is that. That is our goal. And simple goals. You can't make it too complicated. Like, for example, I said for myself that if we don't reach 100,000 users on ShowReel, I'll shut it down. It's simple. Like, I'm not doing rocket science, and so set simple goals that everybody rallies towards, the whole company. And if you're approaching that goal and once you hit it, then you can go and say, you know what, we've done something interesting, something new, something different. We've achieved our targets. So we will continue. Otherwise, tell everybody, listen, we were not able to reach this. I don't think we'll have a successful company.
Sure. Yeah, which is a good point to talk about ShowReel. What is ShowReel, Sabeer?
Okay, a very good question. So the idea for ShowReel really came about at the start of the pandemic. I saw my, at that time, 8-year-old daughter effortlessly make videos on TikTok. And she was making these videos primarily to entertain her siblings, show them, hey, listen, look at me, how funny I am. And in a span of 5-7 minutes, she made, 7-8 videos. And that got me thinking. I'm like, show me how you did it. So she showed me, and this and that. I'm like, and at the same time, there was images of, mass unemployment the world over. because of the pandemic. 25, 30, 40 million people in India went back to their rural homes.
Yeah.
Entire like countries like Thailand and others were shut down because there's no tourism. And that got me thinking. I said, can we make use of video for a socially useful business purpose? Socially useful purpose, business or otherwise. One idea that immediately came to mind was uh, employment. I mean,
Hmm.
so I said, you know what? All these people, uh, at some point, the pandemic will come to an end, and it's coming to an end in the next, hopefully, in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. They will get rehired, right? How do we bring them back into the workforce quickly? So the idea was, can we help them create like a video resume, if you will,
Hmm.
showcasing who they are, their talents, their capabilities, what they have done in life before, what they're passionate about, what is their dream job. And the other one is, uh, can we? So I created an app that did just that, where it would encourage people to answer questions based on some text-based questions that were asked. And it didn't do very well because most people are not actors. If you ask me a text-based question, my instinct is to write back the answer in the form of a
Hmm.
text-based answer.
Hmm.
And that's when I once again saw my kids interact with virtual Santa, who
Hmm.
was asking them questions on Zoom, and they just lit up. I'm like, wow. So they can have a conversation. So now the newest version of the app is one where there is a two-way video in
Okay.
which I'm digitized. I'm the one asking questions, and I ask very simple standard questions that are asked in any interview.
Hmm.
The 10 most asked questions, and people can respond and create a show reel out of our conversation, as if it were a Zoom call where I am interviewing them. So that show reel they can then send to prospective employers, and kind of give them a little idea of who they are, and think of them creating like a QR code, uh, which they can put on a physical resume, so that when somebody sees like 10,000 resumes and sees one with a QR code, and can scan with an app, and see, oh, what the hell is this QR code, and see an actual interview, they almost are, that becomes a talking resume, of a person who's saying who they are. And by the way,
I,
a lot of Indian students who graduate from college, or high school, or whatever degree, they don't market themselves as well as students in the United States or elsewhere, in terms of who they are. Marketing is like part of life over here. You got to showcase who you are. This will help them, showcase themselves, whether the showcase the courses they have taken, what they have done in college, why they studied what they studied, what was their end goal. You got to have a purpose in mind. And I mean, a lot of folks in India, like, just show me what to do and I'll do it kind of thing, But the whole thing has to be, you've got to take responsibility from a very early age. Um, and
yeah,
this will help them in their, even if it's nothing else, even if it is for doing a practice interview before a real interview, it'll help them,
yeah.
build
In
their
fact, by
confidence.
the way, I tried out the app, um,
Yeah,
and I see you ask the questions.
yeah,
In fact, it's like a demo where you're asking yourself the questions and answering them. So I thought
right.
that was pretty cool. Now, the couple of things around it. I like I mean, great innovation on the QR code. By the way, those listening in, when we publish this video, we'll include the link to Showreel as well, so you can go check it out. You'll have to download the app either on your iPhone or on your Android phone, and then you can try it out. Question, Sabeer, is that, okay, I make this video. It gives me a QR code, which I include, let's say, on LinkedIn. Can I put it on LinkedIn, that QR code?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, super. So I can put it on my LinkedIn. I can put it on my paper resume, and that way somebody can look at it. But let's say it's a more of a specialized kind of a job opportunity. Now, I know you're asking the 10 most asked questions, and then that's how one is building the resume. But let's say a certain company has, certain set of questions. Can they create their own questions out there? Is there a medium for that?
Yes, yes, of course, they can create a whole bunch of questions of their own. But now this goes back to, you know, I think the philosophy of companies. And I think it goes back to our entire education system in India, which I think is broken, in my opinion. You
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, it's all a knowledge-based system, right? How much do you know? People go and study massive books and study everything from A to Z, and they memorize, they fill their brains up with this and go vomit it. In today's day and age, that is totally useless.
Mm-hmm.
What I studied in college, I have no use for today. I mean, I'm not doing any Newtonian physics or any, what I studied, machine, this thing. And I mean, it's all for an exam. Whereas in today's world, I should be able to learn anything new. And there is plenty of knowledge or sources available uh, on the net everywhere. Whether it's, I mean, for example, I myself updated myself to the modern AI tools by taking a year's worth of courses online. I did linear algebra. I figured out, okay, what the hell is this, how it works, and this and that. And so in today's day and age, you have to make use of whatever is first, learn on your own. Your ability to learn and process is more important than what you know. So I'm saying that the specialized questions that you are thinking about would at most be knowledge based, right? I mean, they'd be like, tell me, do you know this? Do you know this? Do you know C plus plus? I mean, that's useless in
No,
today's
not
world, other than
not
in very
no no not
highly
not
technical.
not necessarily. I would actually, the way in which I would ask is, pose a problem and see how the person solves it, not necessarily, talk through knowledge questions. That's what I mean. What I mean is that
Okay,
there are, by the way, when I interview people, I actually ask one question. I'll share that with you at another time. But that one question will tell me everything about that person. But I'd love to have me asking that question. And maybe one of your AI algorithms could actually scan the answers to those questions and give me the top three candidates or top 10 candidates.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. We will do that. That's exactly the idea. And the one question that I ask is, what is the hardest problem that you have ever solved, and how did you do it? If
cool.
somebody tells me the hardest problem is a technical problem, I know that they are good at technology.
Hmm.
If somebody tells me the hardest problem they have solved is a management problem, I know they are a manager.
Mhm.
If somebody tells me they are like, the problem that they've solved will change all of humanity, I know they're a CEO. It's simple as that. I mean, it's so you get
Yeah.
the actual, you understand who the individual is,
Yeah.
which is more important than what titles they have had and what they have done
Sure.
in their past. And
Sure.
that's the mismatch in India. You have the wrong person for the wrong job in the country, and that's why it's not running properly. I mean, people want to be something, that's why they become that. They're not that.
Yeah, it's changing. It's changing in several companies now. But that apart, I mean, so this is brilliant. Sounds like a brilliant idea because especially because it's video. One thing important is that the person should be able to communicate and communicate well. At least we'll get to know how the person communicates. Is that a fair point? Because that you can't get
It's a
in paper
fair
resumes.
point, and I'm saying that today's workforce, and there is it is more important for you to be able to work in teams than have individual sparks of brilliance. It's actually a detriment to a team or a company if you are individually, like, think you're the God's gift to mankind. That team will fail, and especially by chance you become a leader, that company fails, whatever. It's so true that we have to have more EQ than IQ, and this captures it. It really captures people who it shows in the way people express themselves, their passion comes out. That is very important.
Sure.
Their honesty, humility comes out. The three things that are responsible for success of individuals and companies is actually very simple: honesty, humility, and hard work. And if you've got those three in an individual, knowledge can come and go. You
Yeah,
need to
of
be
course.
able to have, some base in an area. You have to have an interest, and everything else you can pick up.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think the learnability is the key skill one needs to have, because everything else will follow. How are
Yeah.
you, by the way, which market, which geography are you targeting, ShowReel?
So I'm targeting beginning India because I know that little bit. And the problem is pretty enormous in India. There are 300 million people who are unemployed currently. And at the
Mhm.
same time, there are companies that are looking to hire people. So there is kind of a mismatch between companies and people. They're not finding the right people. This, as if used properly as a tool, can just expand the market, right, of people that they can view. And then, of course, using AI and data labeling, you can then reduce it. Even if 10 million people apply for a job, and the company wants to look at only the 1,000 most qualified candidates, we can use AI to whittle that down, assuming
Sure.
you've done some data labeling that has company culture, other things that are part of the whole thing.
Okay. So in India, how are you getting the word out? I mean, I know you had a little bit of PR a month or so ago. I saw write-ups come out in the
Yeah.
papers. How are you getting the word out? And is there a certain segment you're targeting in terms of education level?
No particular segment. So uh, over the next couple of months, we will announce some, pretty interesting deals that will get us tens of millions of subscribers that will do the interview. So right now it's under the wraps, but you will hear about it in the next 2-3 months.
Okay, sure. And what about the other end, the demand, the companies? How will you be recruiting them as a kind of a separate
Yes,
exercise?
yes, absolutely. Them as well.
Mhm.
And so it's a chicken and egg problem. To create a marketplace, you have to first get enough users and then get companies.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that we are also using this is a video survey kind of tool,
Mm.
where somebody asks questions and you get a response. Now, think of a video survey tool that can be used for healthcare. You know, one of the mini sub apps that we are developing is something called HealthReel,
Mm.
where by asking 8 questions, we can determine the mental health or the mental well-being of an individual. And apparently, 1 in 3 people on planet Earth today has some form of depression, mild to severe. By answering 8 questions, and this is very well known, uh, well researched subject, by asking 8 questions, we can, and determining your response to these 8 questions just by ticking like a checking a box, we can determine if you are not depressed at all, mildly depressed, moderately depressed, or severely depressed.
Wow.
Now, that is phenomenal because now this can be used for all of planet Earth. And the data is something that governments, leaders, CEOs, stakeholders, everyone will want to know, how can we help those who are experiencing depression because of loneliness, because of isolation, because of this whole pandemic, scare, fear, everything.
Sure.
Uh, and so this is a video tool that
Mm.
facilitates like a simple question and answer two-way
Question
response.
answer.
And we can, yeah.
Yeah, I can think of a similar use case with the current Omicron going around as well. Based on some questions, I can see whether I should see a doctor, whether I should get myself
There you go.
tested, whether I've recovered. A bunch of things as well.
Yeah,
Folks,
yeah,
you can
yeah.
ask your questions. I know that I have somebody who's asked here. This is from Lloyd Lobo. question, Sabeer, is you mentioned that the initial goal is to identify and solve an important problem for consumers. At what stage do you work on the business model and revenue stream?
I don't know what stage you work at, because I know that the most successful companies on the planet didn't have a revenue model for the first 5 years. Look at Facebook,
Yeah.
Google. Didn't make any money for the first 5, 6 years. Everybody's like, how are they gonna make money? How are they gonna make money? Uh, yeah, of course, Uber had, because it was processing, this thing. Amazon had, because it was selling something, but it was earning people's trust. I think once you've got a pretty large subscriber base,
Uh-huh.
and I'm targeting, I'm not going to worry about my business model with this company till I get 200 million users. Once I hit
And it,
200 million, then I'll figure out how to make money.
okay, cool. How close are you to that?
200 million is quite a far cry, but I think let's see if some of the partnerships work out. We could get there in 2 years.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Yeah, folks, ask your questions because I'm going to close pretty soon. Let me ask this question, Sabeer. Hotmail, when you were young, kind of your first venture. In many ways, you kind of hit a jackpot at that time, and after that, you've continued with new ideas and new innovations, and now, what, 25 years later, you're with a new startup, ShowReel. How do you keep that motivation going? Because I hear that even Larry Page, right? Google guy is right now cooling his heels on a yacht somewhere. He's
Yeah.
lost the passion. That's what I mean.
Well, it's who you are at your heart. In your heart, who you are, and that's why I think that is something that showreel itself will, in kind of a subconscious way, bring out in people. A lot of people want to be things because they are pushed by society, by people around them, by their parents. I know so many folks, my classmates, became doctors that really should not have been doctors. They didn't want to be, or became engineers just because their parents told them to be an engineer. It's a good career, safe. You'll have like a cool, cushy life all your life, kind of uh, not, you won't rock the boat too much, just come and move on and kind of thing. There's some people who are just born with an idea that they want to do something that will change the world. And I'm kind of inspired by uh, simple things that are written, for example, in uh, my son's elementary school. You know, words that kind of inspire you, and then you take with you deep down into your subconscious self. And the words over here, as simple as that: it is not enough to change the world, you must make it better. It's just written on a building, and I'm like, that is so powerful, and it's so motivating for me, because I don't think I have done enough. I may have kind of mildly changed the world with Hotmail, but now I want to make it really better, and that's what is drives me, and that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what keeps me ticking every single day.
Phenomenal. That's fantastic. We have some more questions coming up over here. This is from Nidish Bhatnagar. You have been associated with so many tech startups, most of them really successful. How do you do that? What about Arzu.com? Specific question on Arzu.com.
Okay, yeah, no, Arzu.com didn't really make it, because there were issues with our like growth model, and the whole pandemic happened, and all flights, everything,
Yeah.
came. So I decided not to just continue putting money into the company. So like I said, every uh, company does not have to be successful, really, but the important thing is you've got to try. You've got to do something different, innovative, and you have to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And over time, you figure out the business model. For example, TripAdvisor, one of the very successful companies, longest time was, what was it doing? It was just giving you advice on
Yeah.
different trips and different hotels and rating on hotels, independent rating place. It's like more of a review or an opinion website.
Yeah. Yeah.
After 10 years, they decided to start adding flights and start making your entire travel plan. But
Yeah.
first 10 years, they just built an audience. And I
Okay.
think that is something that's the long-term view. And I'm afraid that a lot of Indian companies are just doing transactional stuff today and getting a big valuation. But will they be around in 20 years? Can this valuation be? It's not about just hitting a valuation one time. That's like a flash in the pan.
Mhm.
You've got to think of you know, a longer term kind of view. Yeah, if your intentions are right, that you're getting subscribers today and you will monetize them in the future, those will pan out. But you've got to have that belief that your focus right now is just getting large subscriber bases, and
Mhm.
then you can do interesting things with such subscriber bases, and then monetize it later on.
Okay, cool. Okay, something is come on chat. Folks, help me here because you need to put it on Q&A. It's hard for me to read the chat box, but I'll anyway read it. Regarding health reel, how much a subject will come forward to answering questions that reveals their mental health unless it is mandated or they want to benefit? Did you get the question or should I read it again?
Yeah, I got the question. No, I got the question. It's a very good question. Fantastic. Because it's about the well-being. This is the idea, is to help you analyze yourself. A lot of us are depressed and we don't know it. This is all about helping you, seek professional help if you want. It should not be mandated. I mean, a lot of us hide our true feelings inside. We internalize some thoughts. We don't have a recourse. We can't go and talk to some people. And sometimes when you're on a wrong path of thinking, you go into self-destruction mode. This is to prevent that. Hopefully,
Sure.
even if we can save one person by saying, listen, it's okay, you're not alone, there are lots of other people who are suffering from depression, just seek help, professional help, right? The first stage, for example, for alcoholics is to admit they're alcoholics. 99.99% don't give up the habit because they don't even admit they're alcoholic, right? They think they can give it up anytime, as it's just their casual. Similar to that, that is why the questions are very benign, helpful.
Yeah.
This is to help individuals themselves without having, and those that benefit from it, I'm not going to force anybody to answer these are at will, whoever
Yeah.
does it. But if you can get, like, I took this quiz myself to understand who I was, and it helped me. I'm
Sure.
saying I'm now going to take this to the whole world to help them, right? If they can benefit from it, great. If some stakeholders, like company CEOs that have 200,000 employees, they want to know if 1,000 of them, or which 1,000 are depressed, they can at least talk to them, right? So this is
No,
along those lines.
it's brilliant. In fact, offline, Sabeer, I'll connect you with another entrepreneur. She was on our show as well earlier last year, and she actually runs a company helping folks with mental health issues. So I'll connect you. I'm sure there's a lot you could do together as well. A follow-up question from the same person who asked this is that you were mentioning about government using this, hence the question. Okay, that's why he was asking that.
No,
Okay,
government will also not force anything on anybody.
yeah,
We are here just to help the government, not so much. And like I said, I'm in discussion with some folks at the UN health organizations to say, what, can this be used as a tool for all the developing countries, nations like Africa and India and stuff, to help their people, you
mhm,
know, to
sure.
identify at-risk individuals, youth, so people don't get lost in wrong thought processes and stuff, right?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Here's something with the name of your company. In what way the name ShowReel matches with what you're offering?
Because showreel is the first kind of, if when producers produce uh, you know a movie, before they get funded for the movie, they produce a showreel of their movie. So this
Right.
is a showreel that is kind of a video production between you and me, where I'm asking the questions and you create a Zoom interview kind of showreel to say, I was interviewed by Mr. Bhatia and this is who I am. Yeah. If you think I'm good enough, hire me, kind of thing.
Cool, cool, very cool. I think we've done with the questions. Sabeer, there's one more. Okay, what do you think about the next big innovation in customer support? Remember, this is actually kicked off to a Chief Customer Officer Forum, Sabeer. I think I've given you the background. So here's
Yeah.
somebody who's asked, what do you think is the next big innovation in customer support? So let's call it this way, customer experience. What's the next big innovation, in your opinion?
I don't know, but in customer experience, one of the things that I'm also toying with the idea is, I mean, today we are very accustomed to looking at a restaurant or a product or a hotel and looking at the number of stars they've got,
Mhm.
right? I'm saying that's good. We are translating, at least we're getting some idea of, whether to pick a 5-star or a 2-star hotel, which one, we often ignore the 2-star hotels. Uh, but actually, a more important metric would be if I could see some videos of people who've stayed there and express we're humans. We love to hear and see and converse with each other. I will be more influenced if you tell me, hey, next time you come to Bangalore, go to this restaurant, than looking and doing independent research on Yelp or whoever else, whatever else, to figure out which restaurant to go to. So if I could see a video, so imagine replacing those stars with videos. I think that is the next stage in the use of video for better customer experience.
Cool. Fair enough. Okay, great. I think we've answered pretty much all the questions, Sabir, and yeah, it's close to what 8:20 right now. Well, Sabir, thank you so much. I know we woke you up early on Thursday, and thanks for making it. And thank you, audience. Really love you all. Thank you for making it on Thursday evening. With that, we'll wrap up. You'll all be getting an email with a link to this video recording. With that, thanks very much, and
Take care,
see ya. You
MD.
too.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.
All right. Take care. Bye bye. Have a
Bye.
good rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.